Good morning. Pinky here from Imaginisce, and it's tool time. I thought I would share with you today the ins and outs of using the de-stress tool. This is the new tool from Imaginisce, and it's one of my favorite tools. I just love it. And it has a sanding bit on the end, or you can get a fine grit sanding bit for it, a metal one, or you can put an embossing tip in it. And all three tips come in the package, and you can get replaceable tips if you need them. So the de-stress tool just takes two batteries. Whoops, I turned it on. It just takes two batteries you slide in there, two AA's, and it's really light and handy. Has a little lid that I took off. And you can see it has a sanding tip here, and I'm going to show you what I use it for today. So I use it, I don't always want my flowers to be bright and sunny. Sometimes I want them more vintagey. So I use it to sand the edges of flowers here. I'm using a pulley posy from Imaginisce. I'll sand off the edges like that, and it's great for that. And you can see a lot comes off. Can you see that up close? It's very distressed and vintage, hence the de-stress, right? And then I'll spritz it. Or if you make these pulley flowers, sometimes they have the little tiny lips on them where you tear them apart. And I'll just go by and just sand them off like that instead of having to trim them off if they bother me on a certain project. So it's good for that. But the main thing that I use it for is when I'm doing chipboard. This is a chipboard album from Clear Scraps. When I'm doing chipboard, and I have to go around the edges. Now, I used to take a little hand file and file it all down. Well, now I don't have to do that anymore. You can see how I trimmed it close, but you see how it's not a professional rounded edge. It looks like I cut it. And I want to get rid of that. So all you're going to do is you're going to take your de-stress, and you're going to go around the edge until you see all that paper flying off there. And it distresses all the way to the very edge of the chipboard so that it makes it perfect, like a professional edge. And so then when you ink that, it is just simply the chipboard. It's perfect. The other thing I really like it for is when I punch a hole in here, and it's not, see, this hole is not quite big enough for my crocodile, then I take the de-stress in there, and I actually go around the hole to make it a little bit bigger to fit, so the paper actually fits the chipboard. And it takes every little bit out of there, and then I'm set. And actually, this is one of my favorite things because I never used to be able to get my file in there, and I had the tiny round files, but I didn't like using them because it took a long time. So you can see it took all that off. Now, there are other uses for it, too. If you like to emboss, this is perfect because I'm using this Coordinations emboss paper today, and you see how it's already embossed, and here I took the actual top coat off so you can see the embossing. And if you emboss on your Cuttlebug or with regular paper, you can do the exact same thing. And all you're going to do is you're just going to run it over just like that, and I'm shouting over this de-stress tool. Hopefully you can hear me. And there you go. You see it shows up the embossing really nicely. And that works with your Cuttlebug folders or your Sizzix, whatever you're using for that. It's great. The other thing I use it for, and I showed this to you guys a few weeks ago, but I thought for people who didn't see it, they might like to see it again. The iRock tools have these awesome gems, but they pop off of non-porous surface, acrylics. So what I do is, before I put it on the acrylic, and this is just a regular piece of acrylic here from Clear Scraps I used, I touch down the de-stress tool onto the acrylic, and what that's going to do is scratch the surface enough, and you can see the little scratches there, that when I put the stones on, or the studs, and I heat it up with my iRock, it's going to set them on there permanently so they don't come off. And here's one that I already have done, and you can see that even though I'm really scratching at it, they're not going to pop off because I took my de-stress tool to it first. Oh, and I almost forgot to tell you, when you're done with your distressing on the edge of the chipboard, if you feel like you just want a little bit of a finer edge to it, you just take the finer sanding tip and you slide it right in like that, and these just pop out and pop back in. They're very easy to do. And you would just go over it, and it just kind of smooths out those little bit of edges and gives you a little bit more definition. It's really good if you're doing spritzing and stuff like that and painting. Also, if you have too much paint on, maybe a little bit too much paint on there that you want to take off, you would just grind it off like that. It grinds the paper really nicely. The other thing you can do is you can just simply distress paper. And a lot of times I will sew a piece of paper onto a layout and tear it. And I will distress it after I sew it down onto another piece of paper. I will just distress the paper itself. And you can see it doesn't rip it. It just, all it does is it gives it a nice little distressing on the paper. It's not a heavy sanding. I mean, if you did it long enough, it would be. But it kind of takes those edges off, and it makes it very, very vintage, distressed looking. So it's a fun, handy tool to have. It also does embossing, which is this round. And I'll just be honest with you, I haven't mastered the embossing, but I'm going to play with it a little bit more. Actually, I have embossed on my acrylic. I will spritz it, and then I'll go through and emboss it. Like this. Alright. And you can see how it embossed, it actually etched the name in the acrylic. So, you know, there's so much you can do with this tool. I just kind of wanted to run over it with you for anybody who was wondering about it. It's really light. It's really handy. It's very comfortable to use. And it's so much better than hand sanding everything. It takes me so long. This has saved me a lot of energy and effort on my projects. All right, I'll see you next time. Have a great day.